My name is Diana Sue White-Dove. I'm a member of the Havasupai tribe. We are known as the guardians of the Grand Canyon.
My name is Ukwala. I am a member of the Havasupai tribe from the bottom of the Grand Canyon. The danger that is brought forth, that it will have an impact on all future generations, is the issue of a mine that is being dug just right behind me.
Not too much further up this way at 305 is the turnoff to our sacred lands.
Right now we're standing near sacred Red Butte. So this is the place of emergence for the Havasupai people.
Right now there's uranium mining being done out there.
A new uranium mine is digging there against the tribe's wishes.
And local tribal leaders tell us they're concerned about what this means for the future.
I sit here as an elder at the moment, but this started many years ago.
Energy Fuels Inc. has tried to mine this site for decades.
The land that they're mining is very sacred to the Havasupai people. It was one of the places where the medicine were very powerful and grew there. They have desecrated that land.
Shut down Pinyon Mine!
Shut down Pinyon Mine!
Shut down Pinyon Mine!
Shut down Pinyon Mine!
Oh no!
Oh no!
All of this land, they look at it and they only see shrubs, rocks. But all this is medicine. Some of the shrubs are medicine that we've used to help ourselves in sickness. The rocks are used for the sweats we do. The trees, they are used to keep us warm in the winter. A lot of these things are very important to us, but we're not looking at it that way. We're just always wanting money.
This is Andrew Callahan speaking, and I want to thank our correspondent, Juan, for getting this footage of the Pinyon Mine protest last week.
Best shit ever.
For context, Elder Diana, who's being interviewed, is a member of the Havasupai tribe, an extremely isolated indigenous community of about 750 people who live at the base of the Grand Canyon in Arizona.
I stand on sacred land, traditional, ancestral land, that is the place of gathering of medicines, the gathering of tradition, the gathering of a ritual.
Speaking a dialect that belongs to the Yuman language family, it's more than likely they descend from the Delta Humans, or the Patayan peoples, a semi-nomadic group of farmers whose first documented trace dates back to the year 800, whereafter they discovered a massive freshwater aquifer beneath the surface of the Grand Canyon Plateau. And if you don't know what an aquifer is, it's pretty simple.
Spring waters that bubble up from the bottom of the ground.
These waters created Havasupai Creek, a tributary of the Colorado River, which flows into Havasu Falls, the lifeblood of the tribe's tourist economy and spiritual cornerstone of their ancestral mythology.
The actual translation of Havasupai is people of the blue-green waters, because of that waterfall and the color.
In many ways, this tribe is not like many others. Despite their tribal lands being embedded within the most popular national park in the country that sees over 4.7 million visitors every year, the Havasupai have gone to great lengths to preserve their traditional way of living. In fact, they are the last remaining zip code in the US to still receive their mail on horseback, and sometimes receive groceries by way of helicopter. They're also the only tribe in the US who claim that 100% of its tribal members speak their native pre-colonial language.
I speak my language, the Havasupai language. In my language we say, Hanikyo, it is good. Hanikyo, it is good. This is to bring the gratitude of all that is around us and to always prioritize that respect to divine source.
However, some tribal members among my age say it's becoming increasingly difficult to keep the language alive.
I myself speak Supai, It took me a while. At first I was a little skeptical, a little nervous and everything else, but I've slowly noticed that people start to lose interest in our own language. I understand generations exposed to the culture from hip-hop, country, movies, Western, it doesn't pique the interest of the younger generation. That's one of the things where I try to tell people to remain in their culture, like myself. As you can see, I'm a fancy dancer.
Though the tribe's territory encompasses over 295 square miles, it was once 6 times bigger, about the size of Delaware. That was until 1882, when President Chester declared the entire Canyon Plateau public land, ignoring the tribe's territory, and sanctioned the expansion of the Santa Fe Railroad system.
Santa Fe!
ultimately building a new line that ran from nearby affluent Flagstaff into the Grand Canyon Plateau, marketing the plateau as a lavish getaway for tourists during the later stages of westward expansion.
From this great hole, water flows at 1,000 gallons a minute.
As the story goes, this brought forth European diseases like influenza and smallpox, and within 10 years, half of the Havasupai tribe had passed away from disease, leaving only 116 tribal members remaining by 1906. 2 years later, in 1908, President Roosevelt declared the Grand Canyon a national monument, and for the next 20 years, the U.S. government and Park Service would gradually push the Havasupai people out of their lands, often razing their homes without warning to build log cabins in the area now known as Grand Canyon Village. In 1928, the Havasupai people were officially expelled by the Park Service, and for 50 years between 1921 and 1975, they scattered, though mostly remained around northern Arizona, where they created small cultural enclaves within larger Native American reservations. Despite the unforeseen challenges of alcoholism, gambling addiction, and family violence, the Havasupai remained a tight-knit group and lobbied together for over 50 years to Congress, with the sole singular demand of having their ancestral stolen land returned to them. Then in 1975, President Gerald Ford granted them a trust title to the Havasupai-led, designating 175,000 acres of land as the Havasupai Reservation. And though it had been over 50 years, Havasupai elders and their descendants happily returned to ancestral land to restart.
We are all descendants of the people that originally lived here many thousands of years ago.
Since then, they've successfully tripled in size, and most importantly, established a booming tourism infrastructure, complete with a hotel, sweat lodge, ceremonies, hiking, mule rides, cafes, and a museum. If you want to support them, you can apply for reservations at their website, the official Havasupaitribe.com. However, after the restoration of their land, it wouldn't take too long for things to get dark again. It was discovered shortly after that beneath the Havasupai lands was a shit ton of uranium. In fact, 1.6 million pounds of the highest grade uranium in North America, which is roughly worth $114 million. To clarify, this uranium was not specifically discovered under the Havasupai Reservation, but in ancestral Havasupai territory, currently designated as the Kaibab National Forest.
It's not written by law, but by spirits.
However, the preservation of the Kaibab is crucial to their survival. Beneath the forest, and more specifically, beneath the Pinyon Plain mine, is the aquifer that provides the Havasupai tribe with all of its water.
The aquifer is right underneath that area, and the water, if it gets contaminated, will go underground and it comes out right at the head of our village, and it's gonna make us sick. And this sickness is not the kind that you can just die right away. It's going to go from generation to generation, deforming us mentally, physically. We're going to have hardships with our breathing.
Let's talk specifically about the negative health effects of uranium. As we've learned in Hiroshima, Chernobyl, and Fallout 3, uranium creates radioactive waste that can remain radioactive for up to 3,000 years. Also, radioactive dust, which flies off of the waste and the mines themselves, is carried by the wind and can easily contaminate nearby water supplies and crop fields. Exposure to this contamination can cause lung cancer, kidney failure, loss of reproductive function, birth defects in children, and pretty much every other bad thing you can think of. Oh, let's also not forget necrotizing fasciitis, a condition we first observed on the streets of Philadelphia, interviewing users of a drug called Trank.
I wash, clean, put antibiotic fucking ointment on it, wrap it every day. This has been here for 5 fucking months.
According to locals and Havasupai tribe members, the health effects are already being felt, and Pinyon Mine has just began operations.
You know, I've seen a lot of livestock lose their lives. I've actually been scared to drink water, and I've been pretty much going into tap water, bottled waters and stuff myself, because I've heard people have been getting sick and what we thought was clean water, being laid up in the hospitals for weeks at a time due to the contaminated waters.
They pierced one of the aquifers and it's been spewing out ever since. And the little animals are going in and drinking out the water or playing in the water, and they're getting contaminated.
Before we talk more about the negative health effects associated with uranium exposure, let's talk about why it's so valuable.
Yeah, and today it's uranium. The Senate passed this bill to ban enriched uranium imports from Russia, and President Biden is expected to sign it into law soon. It also unlocks $2.7 billion in funding.
First, it's the raw material primarily used as fuel for nuclear reactors that then produce electricity for the masses. And secondly, when uranium is enriched, it's used for defense weapons like nuclear bombs. and also bulletproof tank armor and other armor-piercing projectiles. But most importantly, 41% of all the world's uranium is manufactured in the great nation of Kazakhstan, a former Soviet Union territory economically aligned with our sworn enemy, Mother Russia. So needless to say, the moment uranium was discovered beneath Havasupai-led, the race began. The company running the Pinyon mine is called Energy Fuels Incorporated.
My name is Mark Chalmers, and I'm president and CEO of Energy Fuels. We had a smashing 2023 with $100 million net income, so we're really excited about that, and we continue building into 2024.
Energy Fuels is a Canadian uranium company. They just recently started extraction on January 8th of this year, 2024, and this past week they started transporting uranium ore from here, from the mine back there, down to Interstate 40, and then from Interstate 40 on US 89 going up to the White Mesa Mill.
Congratulations to Energy Fuels on launching its new capacity to process rare earth elements at the White Mesa Mill in San Juan County.
Energy Fuels owns the mine and they own the mill. So the Havasupai people have been fighting the mine here. The Ute Mountain Ute people are fighting the mill at the other end.
Yesterday, members of the Ute Mountain tribe protested the White Mesa uranium mill.
The mill has extended its life by accepting shipments from other radioactive sites as far away as Estonia and Japan.
And then we're also downwind from all of the Nevada nuclear tests.
To assure our defense, we have to keep our atomic strength at top level by testing new ideas and principles. For these imprints answer questions that will speed our progress in weapon development and efficiency.
So, all of these exposures, all of the death and contamination from the nuclear industry it's an ongoing thing that we live with every day. One of our co-founders from Hall No, Klebanali, the late Klebanali, called it a slow genocide. So it's not like the outright bombing and war that's happening in Palestine. It's happening here that the United States is funding and supporting and even promoting.
No uranium! No uranium! When do we want it? Now!
The way many tribal members see it, the construction of this mine is the ultimate betrayal. Here's why. For the past 20 years, the federal government has denied every permitting application Energy Fuels Inc. has submitted and became so determined to shut down any and all future mining in the Grand Canyon that President Biden actually passed prohibitive legislation in August of 2023.
The new designation will protect nearly 1 million acres around the national park from uranium mining.
He noted that in the past, the federal government has used various authorities against the interests of tribal communities. Take a listen to what the president said there.
The time when some seek to ban books and bury history, we're making it clear that we can't just choose to learn only what we want to know.
Yet, somehow, someway, several months ago, Energy Fuels Incorporated's permit was approved. How? Well, it's simple.
A mining law that's over 150 years old has allowed a uranium mine to operate on these lands.
They evoked a law from 1872 called the General Mining Act, which declared that all public federal land could be mined by individuals and companies, so long as they had a sizable discovery of platinum, gold, silver, lead, zinc, or uranium beneath the surface. This law was passed at the far tail end of the gold rush to incentivize prospectors to head west and find fortune underground. For some perspective, during that time in history, most of the western states we know today were not actually states, they were territories, new incorporations of the American frontier. After the 1870s, the gold rush kind of came and went, and so they didn't think to repeal or amend the 1872 Mining Act. Now here we are, 172 years later, and the law's being evoked by Energy Fuels Incorporated. But more importantly, it's being approved by the US government. Now, why would this be? Here's what they say.
I believe that it's important that taxpayers don't get shortchanged on revenue when it comes to resources on federal lands.
The fact that this mining law has been around since 1872 kind of says something.
We must protect American workers, mining communities in the West, and our nation's competitiveness.
US senators claim it has something to do with our entrepreneurial values as Americans,
as well as our pioneering spirit.
But the reality is much more straightforward. Energy Fuels Incorporated has an active business contract in place with the same organization that approved its permit, the US government. In fact, they've promised to deliver our government 3 million pounds of domestically mined uranium by 2030 in order to establish something called the US Strategic Uranium Reserve. which will serve as a nuclear energy backup in the event of a quote-unquote significant market disruption, and likely will be used to barter more equitable defense contracts with companies like Raytheon and Lockheed Martin, who will be able to circumnavigate corporate tax codes by buying uranium directly from the federal government.
At Lockheed Martin, we're on a mission. Your mission.
A lot of this mining that's happening is not going to be here in the United States. It's going to be taken across the ocean, become bombs.
Right now, it is August 5th. In Japan, it's August 6th. Today is the day we bombed Japan. August 6th is the day the United States bombed Hiroshima. August 9th, we bombed Nagasaki. And that uranium came from indigenous lands in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. We call it nuclear colonialism.
Despite these sorts of bold declarations made by protesters, the issue of nuclear energy is actually a very tricky one, because in terms of greenhouse gases and carbon emissions, nuclear is actually the safest and least damaging energy source for the environment, aside from solar. In fact, it's 88 times safer than coal, 65 times safer than oil, and twice as safe as wind. So the way progressive politicians see it, it appears that investing in nuclear energy is a way to combat climate change and save the ozone layer and stuff like that.
And that means building a new generation of safe, clean nuclear power plants in this country.
But for those concerned about potentially being affected by radioactive waste, it appears that the special interest groups representing the manufacturers of defense weapons have colluded to violate federal law to extract mass quantities of domestic uranium in the interests of the war machine, a term that I was introduced to recently at an event called the Poor People's Army March in Chicago, when I interviewed the leading presidential candidate for the Green Party, Jill Stein.
For those who don't know, what is the war machine?
Very simply put, we are now spending about half of our congressional budget, $1 trillion a year, on endless wars and 800 military bases around the world. We are spending more than the next 10 nations combined, the next 10 biggest spenders. We're spending more, mostly on weapons. So it's about half of this humongous budget that's actually going to the war profiteers, the war contractors. They're making huge profits on this. It is an industry which has bought its way into Congress, and it provides a lot of campaign contributions. It provides lobbyists who are defining policy, and it creates these projects that provide jobs in a whole lot of different districts, and that's also how they buy the support of our politicians, such as they are. AIPAC is also part of this.
So, on Hiroshima Day, here we are having a rally. There was close to 200 people out here on the highway to demand that the governor of Arizona shut down Pinyon uranium mine. Right now, the Navajo Nation got involved because the Navajo Nation has a law. They don't allow transport of uranium through the nation.
And Navajo Nation authorities are calling out what they call an unauthorized transport of uranium ore through the nation.
The president of the Navajo Nation signed a resolution asking that uranium no longer be shipped across Navajo tribal lands.
President Bu Nygren says the route exposes the Diné to toxic uranium, a substance that has devastated that community for decades.
We still have 523 abandoned uranium mines waiting for the federal government to help stop them from leaching radioactive water into our communities every time it rains. From the 1940s to the 1970s, our Navajo miners were kept in the dark. They drank the cool water that seeped through the rock. They built homes from radioactive stones. Their wives washed their contaminated clothes, and their kids played in the pretty yellow dirt. No one told them anything.
The transport that would go through the nation, the Navajo Nation stopped it. A temporary pause. That's not enough. We must continue to fight the mine until it's 100% shut down and completely closed, and remediation to the Havasupai's desires, what they want, is what needs to happen here.
Let's talk about immediate avenues for change. Right now, the only person capable of intervening to stop the mine would be Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs. And the only organization actively working to blockade the shipments of uranium to and from the mine is a group called Hall No, a direct action group based out of the Navajo Nation.
I've been a part of fights. We've shut down the world's largest radioactive waste dump in New Mexico. We said no to Holtec. We said halt Holtec. There's a lot of work in the whole world. If people want to get involved, you can contact me through Hall No. My name's Leona Morgan. Hall No is based in northern Arizona. We can stop industry. We can shut down uranium mines. we can take some donations too, but the point is,
there is not an infinite amount of uranium under the surface of the Earth. So regardless of where you stand on Native American issues, and even if you don't believe in global warming, I think it's fair to say that this frenzied pace of natural resource extraction, combined with global overpopulation, will undoubtedly create natural resource warfare and energy scarcity in the future. Perhaps that's why the two-party political machine and media apparatus is so busy distracting the public with culture war issues, to stop us from confronting a harsh fact about the future of human existence on Earth.
there is no energy that we can transition to as humans that's going to continue to supply the consumption that we have for electricity. We need to reduce our consumption. Uranium, nuclear is not going to save us. It's not carbon free. They only count the carbon footprint at the nuclear power plant. They don't count everything before, and they don't count everything after. And that waste is going to be radioactive pretty much forever.
Before I leave you all, here is a message from Yukwala that he asked us to share with our audience.
What is beneath the ground and what is above the ground? There was very specific giftings of divine source for its placement. What is beneath is meant to give that strength and empowerment to those that are on the above. For those of us that are on the above, we have the beauty to watch and see and hear and feel, and know that what we see beneath us and around us is the medicines of which we are given the opportunity to gather, to bring it forth into ritual, into ceremony. There is no limit to what this divine source has brought forth to us as its caretakers, as its sentinels. We're to hear this, and this hearing isn't necessarily of a language that we understand. This hearing is that of what is around us, that wind that is gently blowing, that beautiful bird that is singing, the beautiful sound of the wind within the trees, that rustling, that is spirit talk. What is affecting the future, the wellness, and the survival of all humanity is what is happening right now, to desecrate the Mother Earth in digging it, bringing up things that are going to have an effect on the survival of all people.
Because once it goes through our canyon home, it goes right down to Colorado, all the way to the townships and going downriver. So it's going to hurt us. And it's not, like I said, not just me or my people.
It is not just white. It is not just red. It is not just yellow. It is not just black. But it is all those colors. You are not to exist on this Mother Earth as an excuse. You are birthed onto it to carry the medicines of whom your ancestry is. Whatever it is, utmost, they were also born on the top of this Mother Earth. Therefore, their teachings was to protect it, for it provided the food, the supplies, all that was needed for their survival. You are here today simply because of your ancestors. Therefore, honor that and know that we implore you to awaken, and you too must stand in a tall, strong way to contribute to the alchemy that's going to protect this, the Mother Earth, for the future of all people.
Channel 5 live worldwide, Hollywood and Vine. Fuck the authority, Channel 5 News. Channel 55. We don't fuck with custers. And 5 is the best number.